Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lindsay and today I'm sharing with you this dramatic cool toned fall smoky look. I love warm tones in fall, but I thought I would change it up and bring you a cool tone look for those of you who prefer cool tones or just like to change it up like I do. And I'm going to be using 3 new eyeshadow products from Look Fantastic, who is also the sponsor of today's video. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video, but also I always say thank you to you guys, because who would sponsor me if you guys didn't watch my videos? If you guys have never heard of Look Fantastic, they curate a bunch of different brands of beauty products, and they also just remodeled their site, so it's really sleek and easy to use. We'll talk a little bit more about that when I do the eyeshadow portion of this look, and I also have a discount code, so stay tuned until then, or check in the description if you're interested in saving some money. So before we start, if you guys aren't already subscribed, I would love to have you, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy at any point. But let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to sanitize my hands really quickly. And then starting off our base, an oldie but a goodie. This is the Pacifica Light Clean Foundation, shade 34NL. This has been one of my favorites for a long time. I tend to reach for it more in the colder months because it is more dewy and a bit heavier on the skin. And it's really high coverage, so even this one pump is probably going to be too much. But I definitely like to apply it with a sponge because it is thicker. It just helps to sheer it out a little bit more. I feel like the coverage of this foundation is still unmatched for me. Like, nothing ever comes close to how high coverage this is. I do feel like they did a really good job at covering everything it needed to, but I am going to spot conceal since I have some maskne going on at the moment using the Kosas Revealer. I'm going to use shade 02. It's definitely not my favorite for under the eyes, but I love it as a spot concealer. Since it is more hydrating, you know how spots can get dry skin around them, it just gives a lot of coverage but doesn't make them look drier or really draw too much attention. And just using my sponge to pat those out. I mentioned this in my favorites video, which is going to be going up after this, I believe. But the Real Techniques sponges have changed. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I bought a new pack and they're like a different sponge. They're not as soft. They have more texture to them, which is so like annoying to me because now I don't know what sponge to even use. Like, I don't really want to buy a beauty blender. I don't like the e.l.f. ones. They're similar to the e.l.f. ones now. Like, they have a lot of texture on them. And I did post on my Instagram stories about these and people responded and were like, yeah, that happened to me too. So I'm not the only one. I think they have actually changed them. If you guys have bought these recently and find that they're different, definitely comment below. But anyway, that's disappointing. So that's why I'm using this like pretty old beat up one. I just don't want to let go of it yet. And also, of course, if you have any sponge recommendations, totally let me know those as well. Next, for our actual under eye concealer, I'm using my Cover FX Power Play. Really one of the only concealers I ever reach for under my eyes personally. It's usually either this one or like the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. Now to set, I just recently picked up the CoverGirl Clean Fresh, the same powder that I have from them, just their pressed powder, but the translucent version. I have the like tinted one, as I mentioned, and I want to try this under my eyes because maybe the translucent one is a little bit less heavy looking, because I do like that for the face, but I want to test this one for you guys as well. So using my Real Techniques setting brush, I'm going to attempt to use this under my eyes. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. Let's try the other side. I definitely do feel that this is looking less heavy under my eyes than the one that has a tint to it. I'm going to set the rest of my face with this as well using a large fluffy, this is a ColourPop F18 brush. This foundation's really dewy on me, so I make sure to set it down a lot. But depends on the finish you're going for. You could not set it with powder, but it's really dewy. Like, I would probably suggest that. I can't tell if this is powder isn't actually translucent or my foundation was just a little light. It might have been the foundation, honestly. I think some bronzer will definitely fix that though. I'm going to use the Kosas, what is this called? Their Baked Bronzer, Moisturizing Baked Bronzer in the light shade, which has some glow to it. This bronzer is definitely light in pigment, but I really love the finish. I feel like baked products just work really well on my texture because they add a glow, but they're not so chunky that they accentuate anything. It almost looks like it's a cream bronzer, but it's a powder. That's kind of how I would describe this. So I'm actually going to dip into the medium shade as well, which definitely has more red undertones to it. And I feel like they definitely need to add some more shades to this bronzer range, because if I can use both the light and the medium shade, and I'm very fair and this is me with like a self tan on, then they do need some deeper shades. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of contour using the NYX Sweet Cheeks matte blush in the shade Taupe. It's a very, very cool toned taupe shade as suggested. And I just like to tap this in the hollows of my cheeks. I like to use this as a nose contour as well. I do feel like because it's so cool tone, you definitely need a warmer bronzer. And if you go light-handed, it seems to work if you're similar skin tone to mine. As far as my nose goes, I don't do anything crazy precise. I just use this like pointed edge. This is a Luxie large angled brush, and then I just blend it on the sides of my nose. I feel like we're pretty sculpted now, and I have a new blush from Lawless. I decided on the shade Vintage Love, which reminded me a lot of the Hourglass Mood Exposure, which you guys know I really like. Those are actually really similar. So here we have the Lawless Vintage Love, and there is Hourglass Mood Exposure. Hourglass has a little bit more of a glow to it, but these are interesting because they're not a flat matte. They do have some sheen to them. Like, I feel like those are really similar shades. So anyway, I'm going to take that Lawless blush on a Flower Beauty brush. This is the blush brush, which I love. These are super soft. And I'm just putting this on the backs of my cheeks. I do find these have a really nice amount of pigment, like the perfect blush pigment for me. Not too much, but not too little either. Now for highlight, I'm gonna pop on the Cover FX Moonlight Pressed Highlight. All right, I think our base is done. I'm going to go ahead and do my brows off camera, and then we will be back to dive into these eyeshadow palettes. All right, we are back. Now I have 3 different eyeshadow palettes I want to share with you today. First, we have one from Lime Crime. This is the Venus XL palette. This was my first time trying any Lime Crime palettes, and this one really just called my name. So gorgeous. I've never seen a palette that has this many like pink tones, but also just a great array of transition shade and more brownie pinks. So it seems very wearable to me. I have been playing around with it a little bit more. I was able to do very like great daytime looks with it. And then the other one I have is also from Lime Crime. This is the Venus Immortalis palette. I love the design on the front of this, and this is very clearly a cool tone palette, which I desperately needed in my collection. I have so many warm tones, so we're actually going to be using both of these. I'm gonna kind of show you guys how to blend warm and cool palettes together. Both of these, by the way, are vegan and cruelty free. And then the final one I have here is from Anika. I also wanted to bring a clean option to you guys. This is the Pressed Mineral Eyeshadow Duo in Chalk Coffee, which is a rich matte brown, and then this very pretty, it's almost like a gray bronze. I've also never tried their eyeshadows before, so I'm super excited to dip into this. So let's go ahead and get started on our eye look today. I'm going to start with the Venus XL palette. I almost forgot, but I also have a coupon code for you guys to get 20% off your purchase on Look Fantastic. So if any of these palettes looked fun to you, or if you want to browse their site and pick out some other fall makeup goodies, I will have that link below. I'll pop it on the screen here as well, but let's get started. So the first shade I'm going to start with is this like sort of peachy brown called Idolized, and I'm going to use this as a transition shade. I find these shadows to be pigmented, so I just tapped my brush off to make sure there wasn't a ton of product. Just doing the same on this eye, starting it in the crease and then blending it out. Make sure everything is smooth. When I'm doing a transition, I'm not really too precise with it. I just basically put it everywhere above my crease. I know you guys like the mirror peels. That's satisfying. Next, I'm dipping into this medium tone brown that's still very warm called Burnt Gold, just using that same brush. I'm gonna start deepening up the look. So I'm focusing this in the outer V of my eye. I feel like all the shades in these palettes are super cohesive. Like you could basically put any of these together and they seem to work. Now that we're building depth, I'm going to take this shade, which is like this purpley burgundy, very gorgeous matte shade. You also get a ton of mattes in here. I love having matte shades, but you also have some metallics and a couple sparkle shades. I think there's just a great balance between those. Some palettes I feel like have way too many metallics, but the majority of these are matte, so it's very easy to create a look with. So that shade is called Aphrodite. I don't remember if I said that. I'm going to really focus this on the outer half of my lid. They're so pigmented. Next, I'm using a smaller Precise. This is a Luxie tapered blending just to get those edges blended without adding too much extra product. I'm also not worrying too much about those edges because we're gonna go ahead and clean that up after. Next, I'm moving into our cool tone palette and I'm going to take this shade, which is called Unveil, which is more of a, not dusty, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, desaturated purple. That's going to be great to really intensify the outer V. For that, I'm grabbing an even smaller brush and then just using that right on the outer half to define the crease where it sort of rolls onto your upper eyelid. Now that we're building even more depth, going back into the Venus XL and taking this deep purple right here, which is called Botticelli. I'm using that same brush I was just using and sort of doing the same thing, but more dragging it onto my lid. This is a little bit lighter than that previous shade, but more saturated. I know this is a weird thing to say about a palette, but I really like the smell of these eyeshadows. I have no idea why. It smells like kind of fruity to me. All right, hopping back to our cool tone palette and taking this shade Marble, which I've been loving for my inner corner and brow bone. It's a white that has the slightest shimmer to it, not chunky at all. So I am going to use this as a brow bone highlight and inner corner. If I'm doing an everyday look, I like to use that shade just like on the inner portion to brighten it up. Now for my lid shade, I'm going in with this. There's like this lighter silver. There's also this more bronzy tone one, which I think is gonna be so gorgeous. I'm just using a flat shader to pat this on my lid. This is really a true gunmetal shade, I would say, which I think just looks really pretty with purple. And another thing I've been enjoying about these metallics, like I can pack them onto a flat shader brush and they don't have a lot of fallout. Most eyeshadows I find I have to use my finger with, but I think it's something with this formula makes them very fallout resistant. I tend to notice even with the purple, like I didn't get any fallout under my eye. Next for my lower lash line, I'm going to go back in the Venus palette that I originally used to create the purple smoky effect and just repeat that down there. Now for this Anika little eyeshadow duo that I have here, I'm going to take this matte chocolate brown. I'm going to pack that in my crease just to add a little bit more warmth to it. That was super pretty. I feel like that was exactly what I needed to tie both the colors together. These are actually really freaking pigmented. This metallic shade is actually very similar to what we put on our lid, so you could definitely use that instead. And there's the brown that I just used. It blended out beautifully. I don't feel like it got patchy. Very high pigment for a clean shadow in my opinion. All right, so here is the eyeshadow. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up. I'll do a black wing liner, lashes, and then we'll be back to wrap up this video. All right guys, here is the finished dramatic fall look. I decided to do my lips with the Bite Beauty lip crayons in the shade Glace, and I mixed in a little bit of cognac, which is a deep brown, just to create this sort of muted purpley type of fall lip. So thank you guys so much for watching again. Don't forget, if you do want to purchase anything from Look Fantastic or just browse their site, will be linked below along with the 20% off discount code. And thanks to them again for sponsoring today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will have everything linked below that I used on my face. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you to join me. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.